On February 8, 1587, Mary was beheaded at Fotheringhay Castle in England. Mary was forced to abdicate in favor of her son, James, and fled to England. Queen Elizabeth I welcomed Mary, but later Mary was put under house arrest. English Catholics and Spanish government were plotting against Elizabeth I involving Mary. So, Mary of Scots was imprisoned for nearly 19 years. In 1586, a plot to assassinate Elizabeth was uncovered. Mary was convicted for complicity and sentenced to death. In 1791, Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette were captured, attempting an escape to Austria, by revolutionary forces, and carried back to Paris. Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI didn't support any reforms in France that resulted in increasing tensions and violence among the members of France's middle and lower classes. Louis XVI became a symbol of tyranny. In 1792, the French monarchy was abolished and Louis and Marie Antoinette were condemned for treason. The former king was executed, and 9 months later, the former queen met the same fate. Tsar Peter the Great, or Peter I of Russia, implemented a variety of reforms and brought Russia into the modern age. He updated army, built first navy, won a series of military victories, and established the city of St. Petersburg. Alexei was raised by his aunts since his mother was forced into a convent. The Tsarevich was influenced by people who believed in less westernization and a bigger role for the Orthodox Church and the aristocracy. Alexei didn't submit to his father's demands before. But in October 1715 their relationship cracked for good. Peter promised to pass the crown to a worthy stranger than to his unworthy son. Alexei agreed to enter the monastery, but instead he fled the country in disguise. In early 1718, the Tsarevich returned to Russia and in front of public begged for forgiveness. Dozens of Alexei's associates testified against him under tortures. Finally, Alexei was jailed and put on trial. He confessed to conspiring for death of his father. On June 26 or July 7, by new style. The Tsarevich died of his wounds, so technically he wasn't executed. On January 30, 1649, Charles I was beheaded. The Parliamentarian High Court of Justice had declared Charles guilty of attempting to uphold in himself an unlimited and tyrannical power to rule according to his will, and to overthrow the rights and liberties of the people. This was one of the significant conflicts between the royalists and the parliamentarians in England during English Civil War. Catherine Howard was only 17 when she married Henry VIII. She became his 5th wife and Queen Consort of England. Queen was convicted for adultery and she was stripped of her title as Queen on 23 November 1541. Her presumed lovers were condemned for high treason and executed. Actually, there was no formal trial of Catherine Howard. Henry and Catherine were married for 18 months and their marriage was never formally annulled. On February 13, 1542, Catherine was executed and buried in an unmarked grave. Anne Boleyn was a Queen of England from 1533 to 1536 as a second wife of Henry VIII. When Anne refused to become Henry's mistress, Henry annulled his marriage to Catherine of Aragon and began breaking of the Catholic Church's power in England. The English Reformation started. After a birth of daughter, future Queen Elizabeth I, and 2 miscarriages, Henry declared that he had been seduced into marriage by means of spells. It's believed that Thomas Cromwell engineered the fall and execution of Anne Boleyn, and was convicted for adultery, incest and treason. Anne Boleyn, unlike Catherine Howard, was most likely innocent. All confessions were gained under tortures and the evidence was unconvincing. But all her probable lovers, as well as her brother George Boleyn, were executed. Anne was found guilty and condemned to death. Henry commuted Anne's sentence from burning to beheading, and he even brought an expert swordsman from France to perform the execution. On May 19, 1536, Anne was beheaded.